Good afternoon, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners, and welcome to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Pewter Report is back in Tampa after spending the past week in Indianapolis, where we spoke to Jason Light, Todd Bowles, and numerous top prospects in the coming 2025 NFL Draft. With that insight, we thought it would be the perfect time to go over who the Bucs might pick in a mock draft. Joined with me today is Josh Queipo, and also SB Nation's JP Acosta. JP, I'm going to kick it off with you. Thank you for coming on. How you doing?
I'm doing great. The Combine is always one of my favorite things to watch when it comes to evaluation of NFL draft prospects. It's a lot of that. Everybody makes a whole lot of the Combine, but at its basic core, it is the top 1% of like the 1% athletes in the world doing really cool stuff. So I think if you watch it for that, it's really cool. It's really cool to see.
Now, JP, how many combines does this make for you? Adam and I made our debut at the Combine last year. Adam was able to come back this year. Unfortunately, due to personal engagements, I wasn't able to make it. But what year is this for you at the Combine? And then you and I got to actually meet each other in person for the first time at Senior Bowl down in Mobile. How many Senior Bowls have you actually been able to make it to as part of the draft process?
So I've actually never been to the Combine. I was going to go this year, decided not to last minute. That was my second Senior Bowl that I've gone to. I've been working at SB Nation for 3 years now, 3 years. So in that time, I've been able to go to the Super Bowl, been able to do Radio Row, but I haven't done the Combine yet. And that is the one thing that I'm missing on the draft cycle. I've done Senior Bowl, I need to do Shrine Bowl, but I haven't done the Combine yet. That's the last thing I got to check off my checklist.
All right, you and me, we're making a pact to make it there next year then.
We got to.
Very cool. And then just to give our viewers a little bit of a glimpse into you and your work, can you tell us a little bit about, before SB Nation, like how did you get into football analysis? And then I want to bring up one of my favorite series that you do. And I think there's another edition coming very soon. And I thought I would try and put you on the spot and apply it to some of the Bucs players. But can you talk a little bit about your unique player comps?
So I'll start with the first question. I grew up loving football. My mom and dad tell a couple stories all the time where instead of going to bed at night, I'd be up there with a notebook drawing football plays. I think my mom still has a notebook that I drew football plays in very crudely at the age of 8. And then I've always had a football in my hands. I played football growing up, all through high school. Was set to go to college, play football, decided not to last minute. But I've always enjoyed the schematics and the X's and O's of football. So I decided to take that and everything that I've learned and put it into a format, into something that people can understand. Like my mom doesn't like football, but she wants to read my work. So I always try and make it easy for her to understand and relatable. So like with the player comps, like I like to tie in stuff that I've seen in pop culture and in media. So like, yeah, you'll see, like, I compare Tyler Booker to Mark Henry, who's a professional wrestler, because I think that's awesome. There's going to be a Blastoise comp in this upcoming piece. I think what you're referring to is the NFL draft comparisons that have nothing to do with football. Yes. Pro comparisons suck. When it comes to the NFL and NFL draft, either you're comparing everybody to a Hall of Famer, or you're just not taking into account what they're asked to do, what their body types are. They all are very bad. So instead of trying to compare prospects to NFL players that inevitably they will have to live up to for their entire careers, just compare them to things that have nothing to do with football. Like last year, I compared Roma Odunze to Ricardo Kaká, the soccer midfielder. I compared Malik Neighbors to Max Verstappen. So we're bringing that again. We're bringing that back this upcoming week. Hopefully I'll have some more comparisons that have nothing to do with football. And it's just a cool way of tying in other things from around the world and around like media and culture that'll really help people get like a good feel for who these players are. And I hope you go like, oh, that doesn't make any sense, but then come back to it and be like, oh, wait, he might be cooking here.
I absolutely love that. And I love what you're talking about in terms of like, I feel like player comps so often are forced, right? With that said, I think sometimes you can naturally come to one. Every so often, there is one player who just reminds you of another, even if it's not a one for one. So I actually came up with my very first natural player to player comp in this draft cycle. And I'd like to shoot it at you. I'd like to see what your reaction is. And then I've got two Bucs players I want you to try and compare to anything outside of football. All right.
Okay.
So my actual natural player comp, I just tweeted about this yesterday. Jack Betch, from TCU, Chris Godwin.
Okay. I kind of see it. I actually went with another receiver as very similar to Chris Godwin. I went with Emeka Egbuka.
Okay. I haven't gotten to his eval yet. Okay.
He's like a ready-made, like I call him the people's wide receiver too, because he's just a perfect complementary receiver in the NFL. I think Besh makes a lot of sense in terms of how they both win, the physicality after the catch, and then just the ability to be such a rugged blocker that makes a lot of sense that he would fit in schemes like Chris Godwin has kind of meshed seamlessly along with Mike Evans into this offense where he kind of does the dirty work, some of the in-between stuff that people really don't notice until they're out of the lineup. And it's like, oh, how did everything sort of fall apart? Chris Godwin is like one of my favorite players in the NFL. I think if I could make any receiver, I'd make them to be like Chris Godwin.
Thank you.
Because like I want a guy who's going to be tough. I want him to get yards after catch. I want him to block his butt off. That's what Chris Godwin does. And I think that if you're not a one-of-one athlete, like being Chris Godwin is a great way to make money in the NFL.
And you have a unique perspective of Chris Godwin coming from a Jaguars fan. Now you have Liam Cohen as head coach. Liam, he used Chris in a variety of ways last season. He was off to being one of the best wide receivers in the NFL before his ankle injury. Just kind of wanted to get your perspective, though, as a Jaguars fan. Are things looking up now with Liam and Gladstone as GM? And how did you see that process unfolding?
So
just be mindful of the podcast you're on.
I am mindful of the podcast that I am on.
Yep.
But I thought it was good for the Jaguars to actually not be the butt of the joke this time. It was going to be really easy. It could have been really easy for them just to stick with Trent Baalke and hire like Robert Saleh or something. And then you continue to be the butt of the joke. But for them to recognize barely their own mistakes and admittedly clean house when Shad Khan was so against it, I thought it was really good self-scouting. I thought it was a lot of growth from this team. And I'm a little worried about the youth at every level of the front office. Like Gladstone's 34, Liam Cohen's 39, Grant Udinski's 29, I think. Anthony Campanile is a first-year coordinator. He's 42. It's so youthful, but I think there's opportunity for that. There's opportunity for growth and excitement and energy that's being brought into this franchise. And that's something that the Jaguars haven't really taken a risk under Shad Khan. The last true risk they took was Urban Meyer, and we saw how Urban Meyer went. That was a risk that didn't have any good process behind it. This is a risk that had good process. And I think I'm excited to see how it unfolds. But as a Jaguars fan, I'm also well aware that this could all blow up in our faces, and I'm ready for that as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of people make the comparisons to McVay starting in LA, and there are obvious tie-ins there. But I think the big difference there was McVay had the sense of mind to go out and get Wade Phillips to be his first defensive coordinator, a former head coach, somebody who could help navigate some of the situations that McVay had never been in before and had probably not foreseen. He had the foresight to say, let me get somebody who will be able to help guide me through those. And I think it was a great pairing initially, and McVay has obviously grown from that. And now he's quite the veteran and one of the best coaches in the league. So a little bit of a difference there in how those two setups have happened. So, all right, you ready for a couple of Bucs players? You give me some comps?
Yeah.
All right. So I think Tristan Wirfs has to be one of the names I give you.
Okay.
So who would you compare Tristan Wirfs to as a player comp, not NFL?
I'm going to go with Martian Manhunter from the Justice League, because he kind of goes under the radar when it comes to Justice League characters. Like, he's not Superman, He's not Batman, Wonder Woman, but Martian Manhunter is just as strong as Superman. If you read like the comics, you watch a show, they all say Martian Manhunter is just as strong, but he doesn't get some of the accolades that Superman gets because, you know, it's not the same as being Superman. I think Tristan Wirfs has gone, I don't want to say underrated, but he's quietly been the best left tackle in football after switching from right tackle to left tackle and immediately being good. I think I tweeted about it last offseason, and Tristan Wirfs saw it, but it needs to be talked about more how he went from right to left and immediately was still like one of the best tackles in the game. He's a pillar for that franchise when it comes to consistency, stability. I think he's the first player in the modern NFL to get an all-pro at right tackle and an all-pro at left tackle. You just don't find those guys anymore. He's a one-of-one athlete. And again, Martian Manhunter makes a lot of sense because Martian Manhunter does a lot of different things for the Justice League. If you watch Justice League Unlimited, he's the one manning the hub up in space that's sending them out on missions, doing all this, that, and the other. But when it's time to fight, he's also one of the strongest characters in the Justice League. So I think I'm going to go with Martian Manhunter here.
All right. And then for the second one, I'm going to let you pick among three players, whoever you come up with the comp easiest with. So Baker, I think, has to be a part of the list. Levante David, who is probably, if not retiring this year, then maybe one more year left in him. And then Vita Vea, just because, you know, you talk about one of one.
Yeah.
So you pick any of those three and give me your best non-NFL comp.
I feel like I've said this about Vita Vea before, but I feel I can give you one for all three, actually. So,
by all means.
Vita's a Hummer with the brakes cut off. That I've always said, Vita's a Hummer with the brake lights off. Like there's no stopping this thing when it gets into motion. And I think I actually wrote in Establish a Fun about the tackle on Jake Ferguson on third down being the most athletic play I've seen in the NFL, because it's really hard at 350 pounds to go from hook drop out to the flat on a tight end on 3rd and 4 and make the tackle and stop him short. You just don't find those anymore. And I think with Vita, he's such a massive player that people kind of forget how quick he is, how quick and light on his feet he is. I think some of the injuries have sapped that a little bit, but when he gets out there and he gets into motion, there's nothing stopping him. Like he's going to take like 3 or 4 players in his wake. Baker, I've said is very scrappy do. He's scrappy do. He's got a lot of quirks. I think he's gonna throw himself into fights that he's probably not gonna win. If you want like a wrestling comparison, he's very like Spike Dudley. You know, he's gonna get into a lot of fights. He is not the biggest guy. I think there's something to the ability to just go 110% every single play. We don't really talk about relentlessness with quarterbacks, but Baker Mayfield is like the most relentless quarterback in the NFL in terms of just overcoming some of the deficiencies with his inability sometimes to read the middle of the field. He's quick to leave pressure, or he's quick to sense pressure or pressure that's not there, and he'll leave. And he also thinks that he's a better athlete than like he actually is. But that's a part of Baker Mayfield. Like that's a part of what makes him him. So I feel like Scrappy Doo, like he always gonna get into fights that he might not win, but he's gonna push you to the limit. He is absolutely gonna take you to the limit. With Levante David, I actually kind of struggle with this one because with Levante, he's just always around. Like he's always gonna be there making a play. He's always gonna be someone that really is just, he's the model of consistency, I think, in the NFL. I'm going to go with Piccolo from Dragon Ball.
I love it.
Piccolo is the model of consistency in that show. If you need somebody to fight, Piccolo's going to be there. You need a lesson in life, Piccolo's going to be there. He helped raise Gohan after Goku died. It just makes sense for Piccolo to be Levante David because they both are such models of consistency. They bring a high level of play to whatever system they're in. And I think Lavonte David is a Hall of Famer. I think that he's one of my favorite players to watch because after the speed and burst have really kind of left, the instincts have stayed. And that's something that's helped maintain his level of play at the NFL. But I'm going to go with Piccolo.
All right. I love it.
Well, I love those comparisons. But kind of shifting more to the draft now. So, JP, you cover the NFL in its entirety, but you recently did a story kind of going over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers' biggest needs. As you look to the NFL draft, I don't know if the combine or anything changed your thoughts on who the Bucs might target. What are a couple of positions that you think are the point of emphasis heading in?
So I think obviously you got to start with the front seven for the Buccaneers on the defensive side of the ball. And the thing that I noticed with Tampa towards the end of the season is Todd Bowles loves running the simulated pressures, loves the creepers, loves the add-on blitzes. But I think Tampa can be so much better if they had linebackers who could consistently blitz or cover. But I also think having guys that you can win with four. And I think that's something where the Bucs sort of need to address, because outside of Kalijah Kancey, they really don't have a guy who can consistently win in 1v1 situations. I think Yaya Diaby is still kind of getting there, but you really don't know what's going to happen there. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka is a free agent. Anthony Elson's also a free agent. But then when you look at their second level, you look at guys like Lavonte David, who's a free agent. I think losing Servassier Dennis really kind of took out some of that coverage ability. And I think when you saw the Bucs losses, they just picked apart the middle of the field. And part of that is because of all the simulated pressures. If you're going to bring a guy, you gotta drop a guy. It's the law of equivalent exchange. But there are far too many times where Anthony Nelson is left out on an island because the pressure doesn't get home. So if you're going to bring the pressure, you need somebody who can actually bring the heat as a blitzer, or somebody who's on the edge who can consistently win in those 1v1 situations. I also think corner is a very sneaky need for this team. I think Zion McCollum is great. I think he had a really good year. Jamel Dean struggled with injury, had a little bit of issues returning to that level of play from the Super Bowl season, from the season after that. And then the depth, I think, of that secondary room really got tested as both those guys missed time with injury. And you can really tell that, not every team is going to have 1 to 53 depth of we can just roll guys in and out and we're not going to miss a beat. But the drop off in play between Dean and McCollum and then cornerback 3 and 4 is really stark and needs to be addressed, especially if both those guys are going to miss time due to injury. So I definitely think secondary should be somewhere where they address. And I'm a little curious what they do along their interior of the offensive line. But I think you got to start with the defense. I think they need to get faster. And I think it's got to start up front with the front seven.
Okay. I think that's really great. One of the points that you brought out in terms of the linebackers, when I was doing some, what do they call them? Post-season or just evaluating the season overall. Lavonte David came in as a pass rusher 148 times last year, which is the second most in his career, only 6 snaps behind his rookie season when he was a pass rusher 154 times. And typically in the Todd Bowles defense, Lavonte has been more of the coverage backer, allowing, obviously over the 4 years prior to this year, Devin White, who for all of the faults that Devin White had, he was a very good pass rushing linebacker, mugged up, bring him off the edge, use his athleticism. And that had been something that worked for the Bucs. Without Devin White, KJ Britt never really moved into that role, wasn't athletic enough to really do that. And it forced Bowles to kind of switch things up and say, all right, I guess Lavonte is now going to be my mugged up backer. He's going to be the guy that we bring in. And he isn't as good as Devin White in that respect. And then they also suffered on the back end because KJ Britt, JJ Russell were not the coverage backers that Lavonte is, even at the twilight of his career. So I think that's a really good point that you brought up. So with that, let's set up this draft. We're going to do 4 rounds. We've done 7 the last couple of these podcasts, but we all know that really teams are looking at on day 3 to fill out special teams, developmental guys. Let's talk about where they can actually create some impact in the first 4 rounds. And before we do that, we need to set up JP. If you look across the free agents that are set to hit this year, and you could say you can address, let's say, 2 of the Bucs' needs with any free agents. I've done the cap analysis. They've got the money. They can bring in any 2 top-end guys. If you want to go top-end, you can go mid-tier. What 2 positions would you want to address, and with what free agents?
So I guess it's kind of cheating because I don't think it's that big of a need. But my first thing is you got to bring back Chris Godwin. That is the key to everything in that offense. And I think with Godwin's ability to be sort of the blocker and yards after the catch guy, it allows for Jalen McMillan to kind of do some of the same stuff that he was able to do towards the end of the season. And you can kind of let him grow into that role without having to do it right away in the midst of still trying to compete for titles. So I say you got to bring back Chris Godwin. In my head, Chris Godwin is a Buccaneer for life. Every time I've talked with people who are like, hey, we should bring Chris Godwin here. You should bring Chris Godwin here. And I'm like, that's not going to happen. It's like, with all due respect, in my head, like, this is not going to make sense. Chris Godwin in any color that's not pewter and red, that's just not going to happen in my canon here. So with Chris Godwin still around, I think I would go with DJ Reed.
DJ Reed.
I'd go
cornerback.
Corner.
Okay.
And I think it's a very interesting thing what has gone on with pass rush versus pass coverage in the NFL, because they both play hand in hand. You can have a great pass rush, as we saw with the Bucs, with all the simulated pressures, all the stuff that they're able to do. But if your coverage is not up to snuff, they're just going to throw the ball quickly. And you see that a lot. You see that happening a lot of times. But if you have great coverage and no pass rush, the quarterback's just going to sit there in the pocket and wait for your guys to tire out. So I think the Bucs are in the area where they're trying to find that perfect balance. I think DJ Reed is such a feisty corner for being a little undersized, willing tackler, got the speed to still play, breaks on the ball really well. And I wonder if he's going to get I wonder if he gets priced out of the Bucs range, but I would love to see DJ Reed and Zion McCollum. Just these 2 athletic freaks, and you can really start to play sort of matchup ball, especially with, you know, where the Bucs want to be and who you might have to face come playoff time. You're going to have to face Philly again, who has A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. You're going to have to face Detroit and whatever they trot out receiver, including Amon-Ra St. Brown. You're going to have to face these superstar receivers and passing games, and they have to have their pass coverage up to snuff. So I'll go with DJ Reed here.
All right, I like it.
It's Chris Godwin and DJ Reed. So DJ Reed, you mentioned kind of being a little bit undersized. You wonder if he would be the nickel corner, and with Jordan Whitehead being cut, move Tyke back to safety. What would you do then in that case with Jamel Dean and Levante David? How are we operating in this mock draft?
That is a very interesting question. I think you can play sort of matchup ball with DJ Reed inside and out. I think DJ Reed probably be best outside. And in this scenario, I'm just worried about Jamel Dean's long-term health. Yeah. I think he has clearly kind of lost a step because of all the injuries. But I would go with you can move Tyke back to safety with Whitehead being a free agent. And then you can just be so much more versatile with these guys. Yes, Tyke is going to be back at safety, but if you want to move him up, you can play him there. You think of a team like the Ravens, you know, with Kyle Hamilton. I'm not saying Tyke Smith is Kyle Hamilton, but their ability to play him in the box as an overhang, play him back as a deep safety. You can move they can move Marlon Humphrey inside and outside. I think having those versatile players, those queens on the chessboard, will really help unlock some of the versatility that Todd Bowles wants from his defense in terms of adding on his blitzers while still being able to defend in coverage.
I like it. And what I really like about this is a path that we've never really considered at Pewter Report before. So it's great to get these perspectives and kind of look at the team from a larger from a stand back point of view. And I really like the creativity there, JP.
So as we have the PFF mock draft pulled up here, just kind of want to get your guys' thoughts. How do we want to go about these sliders? Do we want to keep them the same? Do we want to move them around a little bit?
I will leave it to the guest.
I'm cool with whatever. I'm a very like, I'll let the board be what it is, and I'll play it how it comes to us.
Any more care for positional value, draft for needs, randomness?
I say let's just leave it the way it is.
Leave it the way it is. All right. So we'll start it 4 rounds. Got the Titans on the clock.
You trading up, JP? Oh, too late. You have to pick a 19.
We could restart it if you want.
No. I love it.
No. I'm cool with playing where it is. Wow. So, of course, hindsight is 2020. But Will Johnson being there at 19 is like, whoa, okay. Didn't expect that. But it's really interesting here. Obviously, I see Michael Williams and Shamar Stewart still on the board.
Yep. There is Donovan Ezeraku is usually around here too.
Yep. Donovan Ezeraku.
Yep.
I was going to say, why don't we take a look, since JP, you named some of the major needs. Sly, could you filter just to look at some of the, I guess, defense? The other thing that I'll suggest, I know you said hindsight, JP, but I'll give you an out here, which is Jamel Dean's contract. The Bucs could easily cut him at any point in the offseason and save $8 to $9 million in the cap. They could also save over $13 million in cash. And so there is, I think, if you're really loving this Will Johnson falling all the way to 19, there is a possibility where the Bucs could move on from Jamel Dean and still find a way to get Will Johnson on the field with DJ Reed.
I don't think I'm going to do that. But if I'm putting myself in the head of Todd Bowles, I think Todd Bowles has turned on the Georgia game and said 11 from Georgia. That's my guy. So I'm gonna go with Jalen Walker here. First round.
Jalen Walker.
Wow.
All right.
Okay.
Lots of questions.
19.
Lots of questions.
I think some of his like positionless, like where do you play him? Edge? Do you play him at off ball? To me, he is an edge defender. I think he's a little stiff in coverage, but with the way that Georgia deployed him, they were able to shift from 3-man fronts to 4-man fronts, from 4 to 5. And his ability to add on as a blitzer from depth, his ability to win with, honestly, I'm not too worried about his arm length on the edge because I've seen him win with power, which is a little more of the surprising thing, the motor, the burst. And I think that he can be sort of that in-between that Bowles wants from his defense that truly, they were missing in Tampa. You wanted some guys who, with all the simulated pressures, guys who can win off the edge or kind of drop into those hook and flat areas. As much as I love Vita Vea, you don't want him doing that often. So yeah. I think going Jalen Walker here gives Bowles the best of both worlds. I think if you want to play him as sort of like a Frankie Louvu off-ball linebacker where you just send him on every play regardless, I think that makes a lot of sense. If you want to play him on the edge, I think he and Yaya Diaby are really fun, and they both are more pocket compressors. So as long as they're compressing the pocket, you can push the quarterback up to Kalijah Kancey, who wins more with burst and quickness. So I think he also plays very well complementary with Kancey, with Yaya Diaby, and he ties everything together up in the front seven.
So with Walker, he is more of that defensive chess piece, especially with a guy like JTS being a free agent. He never really lived up to the potential of being a first-round pick. But with Walker, to your point, he had 195 pass rush snaps to 178 in coverage. So his ability to kind of get after the quarterback, but also drop, I think for a defense, if he was to fit in a scheme, it would be Todd Bowles. But you kind of wonder a little bit about the production, maybe compared to a guy like Ezeraku, where Ezeraku had 16.5 sacks for Boston College. I think Walker, correct me if I'm wrong, he had like 4 or 5. So there is like some rawness to his game.
Yeah, I think the production for Ezeraku is, quite honestly, if Jalen Walker wasn't here, it would have been between Ezeraku and Shamar Stewart, because I think both guys fit the body types that Todd Bowles looks for in their edge defenders. I think Stewart fits that to a T with just the big, long velociraptor arms. But Ezeraku's ability to win off the edge would give them somebody, like I said, if you want to win with 4, they can win with 4 with Ezeraku, and I think they can win with 4 with Shamar Stewart. But with how much simulated pressures they run, with all the moving parts to that defense, getting a guy who was basically the moving part in Georgia's defense would make a lot of sense here. I think Ezeraku, if Walker was not there, would probably be my pick, or Shamar Stewart, but I think Walker here makes the most sense for a Todd Bowles defense, and I think Todd Bowles absolutely loves Jalen Walker.
All right, I like it. Let's go ahead and lock it in.
All right, so we'll go with Jalen Walker here.
While Sly's locking that in, JP, can you talk a little bit about the position groups that you think are maybe the deepest in this draft versus the position groups that you feel are maybe a little bit thinner?
So with this draft is a really interesting one when it comes to positional value, because I think all the positions that are really strong are ones like running back. I think tight end is very deep. I think we're getting a lot of good guards from this class because all the college tackles might be moving to guard. And so we're getting a lot of guys that are more interior players, got guards moving to center, vice versa. So I think the interior and up the spine of this class is really strong. The defensive tackle class is incredible, quite frankly. I think that you can wait until day 2, day 3, and you will find a very good defensive tackle in this class, depending on what you want. I think the edge class is really fun. I don't know if it's as loaded with superstar potential as previous classes, but I think you're going to find a lot of good starters or like designated pass rushers in this class compared to like receiver, where I think receiver's really thin. I think it's because there's no, outside of Teteroa and McMillan, there's not a true like boundary receiver in this class. The next few guys are more slots. They're more of the Z receiver. We talked about Ibuka.
Do you see Matthew Golden more inside in the slot, or do you think he can be a perimeter threat?
I think he's more of a Z. I think he's more of a complimentary guy who you move around. I think McMillan is an X. I think Jaden Higgins on day 2 probably going to be an X receiver.
Yeah.
But outside of that, there's a lot more guys who are more Z's or more slots because of the body types that are entering the league now. You have a lot of guys who are more around the 6 feet, 6'1" range, or a bit stockier build. I think they fit more on the inside rather than the outside. And then we've talked a lot about this quarterback, and we talked a lot about this quarterback class. It is very, very thin. If you need a quarterback this year and you're not picking in like the top 10, you don't need a quarterback this year. You might as well punt and try again next year. I actually think like I said, receiver, quarterback, and then tackle is really interesting. I think the top 3 guys in Josh Simmons, Armand Membu, and Josh Connolly are really good. But outside of that, there's a lot of question marks because, again, how many of these guys are actually going to play guard at the next level?
So are you a Kelvin Banks truther or no?
I am a Kelvin Banks should move to guard guy.
Okay.
I think he's a guard. And
I was not a big fan of his tackle tape.
Yeah, I think it's more just he plays so wide and plays so heavy-footed that I think it just fits more at guard. I think a guy that came to mind when I watched him was Tyler Smith from the Cowboys, who was fine as a tackle, but incredible at guard. And I think you can use some of his nastiness on the inside, some of that physicality. I think it makes a whole lot more sense on the inside.
I like it. All right. So here we are at pick 51. The Bucs got a chess piece in Jalen Walker. What are you looking at? Oh, go ahead, Sly.
Cam Scatterbo. Get a running back. Get another Mike Allstott.
Sean Tucker fans are going to come for your throat, buddy.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be a little bit greedy here. Give me Carson Schlesinger.
Schwess? All right.
Give me Schwess from UCLA. And I think Schwess and Jalen Walker work off each other really well because while Walker could be more the edge guy, you've now addressed edge and linebacker with Walker. and Schlesinger can be the off ball that you're looking for. He weighed in at the combine at 242, which is a great weight for him.
That shocked me.
I'm stunned. I was stunned when I saw 242. I was expecting like 230. He played at 220 at UCLA as a walk-on senior. I was not expecting him to get to 242. Here. Yeah, and he didn't test at the combine, which that's like, okay, you put on a whole bunch of weight to try and make 242, and I respect you not running. But the thing that stands out about Schlesinger at UCLA is the range and the instincts. You're looking at a guy who can carry those Tampa 2 guys as the middle runner. You're looking at a guy who can go sideline to sideline, and I think that speed is something that they missed at the second level, especially with Levante, like you said, being more of a blitzer. We talked about KJ Britt, JJ Russell not really being able to do that. And so if Servassier Dennis comes back healthy, you wonder what happens with Levante David. But now you've just created a really fast linebacker room with Schlesinger and Servassier Dennis in the middle of the field. And then you add Jalen Walker to that. And now you just have these rotating pieces at linebacker. You have all these versatile guys, and you think about what Philly was able to do with Zach Bond. You think about what being able to do that with Walker in terms of shifting fronts, stemming fronts, and Schlesinger can be more of that true off-ball linebacker. It's a little greedy going double-edged linebacker here, but you've immediately revamped that defense and given it another gear, because I think that's something that Tampa also missed in their front seven. They missed that speed, especially with Levante being a blitzer.
Well, I was going to say specifically, and Bucs fans will have PTSD on this, but how many times were they not able to carry number 2 or number 3 up the seam last year, right? Atlanta absolutely smoked them on that over and over and over. And Schlesinger, I could definitely see as somebody carrying the seam and cutting off some of those passing windows, helping the front seven force the quarterback to take an extra beat and hopefully get home. So I like that. I do want to ask you about a couple of guys who are available here. Just did they give you any pause? The first of which, and I will fully admit, I haven't evaluated the entire cornerback class yet, including some of the top guys, but Darian Porter is currently CB1 for me. He did have an outstanding combine. However, I want to put that into perspective because I think this is really important for fans to understand. Darian Porter had nothing to gain in the combine, in my opinion, because everyone expected exactly what he did. He is one of those guys who had everything to lose, and he shouldn't be given extra credit for the combine that he ran because that's what you saw on tape. That should have been the combine that he had. And he had a phenomenal combine. He ran 4.3 in the 40. I want to say the vert and the broad jumps, all of his explosive drills were fantastic. And not quite Zion McCollum-esque agilities, but still within that range. But can you talk a little bit about how do you evaluate combine results from guys? And what kind of credit do you give a player for his combine? And then expanding on that, your thoughts on Porter.
So like I said, at the top, I said the combine is really cool athletes doing really cool stuff. That's what it should be. When it comes to evaluation, the combine should be used to validate the things that you saw on tape. If you knew a guy was going to be fast going into the combine and he runs fast, you don't move him up the board because you knew he was fast. You saw that on tape. If he's fast with pads on, he's probably going to be fast without pads on. If you expect the guy to run fast and he runs slow, then you go back to the tape and go, okay, what was I missing? Did he just not prepare well for this combine? Was maybe a level of competition? If you think a guy is slow and runs fast at the combine, you go back to the tape and you go, okay, what was something that I missed? Did he play with an injury during the season? Was it just good combine prep? That's what the combine is used for. It's to validate some of the things that you see on tape. I use it more to see the agilities, the hip movement, the change of direction, because that's the stuff that's really going to translate at next level, especially for corners. And when we talk about Porter, I actually haven't gotten to him yet, but one of the things that stands out is just the former receiver turned corner. He doesn't have a lot of snaps at corner, but he's immediately going to help you on special teams. Yep. I think that immediate help on special teams is going to stand out a lot to guys, especially with the length, the speed. I got to get to him, but like you said, it's very Zion McCollum-ish. And I think there are a lot of guys down this board who are very McCollum-ish. I think Za Frazier from UTSA also stands out in that area. But with Porter, you wonder a little bit about the limited snaps at corner. But I also say that for Tampa, when it comes to their cornerback room and their ability to turn guys like Zion McCollum into what McCollum is now, you could take a guy like that and go, okay, we'll see what we can do with him because it worked before, and you can make lightning strike twice. So I understand there, but I just think Schlesinger here, like it's a perfect meshing of what Todd Bowles wants from his linebackers. And I just think he and Jalen Walker would be incredible to watch at the second level.
All right. I like it. Sly, any questions for you about anybody you saw at this juncture?
No, the two guys that stood out to me were Schlesinger and Darian Porter. Ezra Thomas, he also is another name to float out there as a corner. But after skipping Will Johnson in the first round, signing DJ Reed, keeping Jamel Dean, I think the top three at corner is solidified enough to where you can probably wait another round at this point. But you mentioned getting a guy like Schlesinger out of UCLA. I mean, you look at the numbers here, a 90 pass rush grade. I mean, you mentioned the ability for like a Todd Bowles linebacker to blitz. So that really sticks out. The 7.6 missed tackle rate. There's quite a few linebackers in this class with higher missed tackle rates, but you want somebody that they see the ball carrier, they're bringing him down. And I think this guy, he has the range, he has the athleticism, but he also is a sure tackler. He just checks a lot of boxes. So I think this is a great pick.
Yeah, I think the thing for him is the play strength, which coming in at 242 is really good because he got kind of knocked over at times. I thought he'd be more of a will, but if you play him behind Vita Vea, who will take on all the blocks and just let him run and chase, I think that makes a lot of sense because you have guys with the way that Tampa has built their defense outside of Kalijah Kancey to have all these space eaters up front. You allow Schlesinger to kind of stay clean and keep hits off of them. So I think it makes a lot of sense.
Before we get into our round 3 discussion here, in the first 2 rounds of this draft, we've gotten a lot of value. And Bucs fans out there, you won't find better value than heading to walk-ons.
Yeah, so what happened out there tonight?
We struck out at home with leftovers, then we remembered walk-ons.
What effect did the situation have?
Spirit soared. Nick took on a burger. Jen obliterated her ribeye po' boy. And speaking of spirits, Laura even scored a real tasty cocktail. She needed that.
Any lessons learned today?
Yeah. Head straight to walk-ons.
Scratch-made dishes, wall-to-wall TVs, craft beers, and cocktails. Walk-ons for the win.
Even though it's not NFL season anymore, you can still score some great deals by heading over to walk-ons. You can catch the spring training and the MLB that's just starting up. The NBA action, there's just about 20 games left in the regular season. The Tampa Bay Lightning don't play tonight, but you can go to walk-ons on Monday for their happy hour from 3 p.m. to close and watch the Lightning kick off on the ice at 7 p.m. There's plenty of great deals there. You can download the walk-ons app. You can earn, save, and win, and earn some free mozzarella logs when you download the app. Also, you can try their wings with their Southern Bourbon sauce, and you could score 100 bonus points. There's 3 locations in the Tampa Bay area: Midtown, Wesley Chapel, and Lakeland. So be sure to head over to walk-ons. All right, we are back here for round 3. Go down the board here. Do we want to sort it by a particular position?
So we've addressed linebacker, we've addressed edge, and I think we addressed corner enough with DJ Reed.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm thinking we can be a little greedy. I think we can be I'm thinking initially along the interior of the offensive line with Bredesen, with Hainsey also being a free agent this offseason. Of course, drafting or having Cody Mock at guard and then also having Barton at center is going to really set everything up. But I'm thinking along the lines of a guard here.
Okay.
Guard.
One I really like.
I'm considering Ratledge here, but Ratledge only played right guard in college. But he's one of my guys. So you know what? I'm gonna go take Ratledge here.
Let's go.
when you think of junkyard dog, just mean as hell offensive lineman, that's Tate Ratledge. And he always is looking to finish plays. That's one of my favorite things about him. He is not just going to allow you to he's not going to leave you standing. And you think of that physicality and the ability to move. I worry a little bit about the ankle injury with tightrope surgery, but Brock Bowers got tightrope surgery last season. He seems fine. So I think Ratledge here makes a lot of sense. You can either play him at right guard and move Mock to left. You could try playing him at left if you want to, but if you think about what the Bucs want in their offensive linemen, it's the ability in space to get out on pulls, counters, and then the physicality. And I think Ratledge fits that to a T. It might be a little bit greedy, but for a guy who's in my top 50, getting him at 83 is incredible.
So he is the top guard on my board, although I haven't scouted the position much and I haven't done the tackle to guard transfers. Also, for a room that once celebrated Ryan Jensen and the not just his play style and how great he was, but also the demeanor of a Jensen and the appearance of a Cody Malk, right? Like the whole ginger love that the Bucs offensive line room has. They will 100% embrace the mullet that Tate Ratledge brings, along with some really high-end performances. I love the pass protection. I probably wouldn't move Malk over just because the connection and the way that him and Gedeke play together, especially those double teams that they're able to create, I don't know if I want to mess with that, and I'd rather try and move the rookie, which the Bucs have done a great job of being able to move offensive linemen from their natural position in college to a different position at the pro level over the last 10 years. Didn't work out for Gedeke, although they found him a home at right tackle or back at his natural position. But Malk has successfully moved. Wirfs has successfully moved. Ali Marpet successfully moved. Trying to remember, he's now at Cincinnati. Alex Kappa has successfully moved. So they've got a lot of experience at moving guys, and more often than not, it pans out. I love Ratledge's game. I'm glad you went there, JP. Like, I'm a huge fan.
That's the guy I saw that I was like, oh, this will be really fun. I was like, okay, this is the guy.
Ratledge is a fun prospect. There are a couple comments I want to get to, just kind of talking about where we're at in the process. So JT Olson, he says mullet power, referring to Tate. We also have Jonathan Fuentes. Tate's a great guy. Wife knows his family, but there is some pushback. There's one other prospect the Pewter people are mentioning here. Felix Schmidt, he says Kobe Bryant. And then Kobe is the pick there, the kind of ball hawk that the Bucs love. And it's a dilemma, right? Because Jamel Dean, he's missed 9 games the past 2 seasons. When he's on the field, he's still solid. But the question is, you saw it in 2023 with him and Carlton Davis. Either one of them was getting injured at one point in the season. And then last year, he missed a crucial stretch where you mentioned earlier in the show, JP, where the Bucs' depth beyond the top 2 corners, I mean, it's Josh Hayes, an undrafted guy, and Tyreek Funderburk. Todd Bowles loves his corners. You mentioned the versatility in getting Jalen Walker and Carson Swetzinger. The versatility of the defensive back, right? Tyke Smith, a nickel. He can be a safety. Zion McCollum experimented a little bit at both positions. You have Antoine Winfield, who played a year at nickel before going back to safety. Is there some consideration there?
I think there is when it comes to the depth, but in this scenario, adding DJ Reed, you now push Dean to, if you can be an outside guy, I think that makes a lot of sense. If Reed goes down, you can move Reed, if Dean goes down, you move Reed outside and move Tyke back to nickel. So you allow yourself to be more versatile. But with adding DJ Reed, I think they address corner later on. And that's where I think, with free agency impacting the draft, that they decide to go with corner in free agency and getting a higher profile guy, even like a guy like Byron Murphy, if they wanted to. That allows you to get more depth at the spot in the second day or later on in the draft. And I just think Ratledge here, I hate to go the mullet power thing, but this is the type that the Bucs like at guard. They like the physicality. They love the movement skills. I think that Ratledge fits what they want. especially with a lot of their left guard options hitting free agency. That's going to be something that I'm really curious to monitor with what the Bucs do a lot at that spot outside of what they do along their defensive front, because the one consistent part of the Bucs from the Brady era to Baker Mayfield has been the offensive line has been good. So how they address that and continue to keep that high level of play is going to be intriguing to me. But Ratledge just screams Bucs physicality, demeanor. Like, you just think of, like you said, Ryan Jensen. And although he played center, that physicality and the nastiness, that's something that I think the Bucs will really value.
Yep.
And by picking Tate here, he's the last piece of the offensive line because it is such a young offensive line. You go from the Super Bowl era, they've completely revamped that room, getting a guy like Luke Gedeke, extending him potentially this offseason. You have Cody Mauch, you have Graham Barton. Those are guys that are going to be above average starters for the next half a decade at least. And then Tristan Wirfs, who he's a superhero. And getting a guy like Ratledge, he adds, like you mentioned, physicality, that mullet. He'll be right in the mix in the locker room. He'll fit right in. So I think it's a great pick. You've kind of convinced me.
Yeah, I think just the ability on down blocks and pulls. That's what you want with Tate Ratledge, and that's something that the Bucs really like, especially as we saw with Liam Cohen, their ability to switch from more of a zone to a gap scheme style of run game. I think that's going to continue even after Liam Cohen is gone, because if you look at who they have on that offensive line, they play so much better in space as pullers and in physicality on the down blocks. Ratledge is such a good down blocker because he just wants to put people in the dirt. And I think, again, that demeanor is going to fit really well with what they want to be up front.
And Sly, I'll just remind our viewers, Ratledge was a part of Scott and my's Pewter Report 7-round mock draft 1.0 when we did the very first one. So we had him as a day 3 guy. He's been running up people's boards. You can hear JP's got him as a top 50 pick. So if the Bucs were to take him, I think it's probably going to have to be on day 2 now. But I love the pick, JP. So let's lock it in and we'll move to the last pick of this podcast.
All right.
All right. So I think I do want to filter it for corner here.
Okay.
I think this is where I'll address cornerback, just get some depth and some potential here. Oh, my guy is on the board.
You talking about Quincy?
I'm talking about Quincy Riley. I love Quincy Riley, man. He's a little undersized. I don't think his demeanor might be for everybody, but he's got the dog in him. The quick trigger, the reaction time. He's also a physical tackler, which is something that's going to stand out in Bowles' defense, especially with how much they run the simulated pressures, how much they leave their corners in space.
You don't worry about the tackling? I was not impressed with the tackling.
I'm not worried because it's not an effort thing. It's more of a, like, he wants to be, but sometimes, like, he's got the technique has to be better.
All right,
but
that's fair.
The physicality, despite being a smaller guy, the quick trigger, I just think Riley is a really nice fit as sort of this outside guy who can be a potential starter in the future. But if Jamel Dean goes down and Reed is playing really well, or if you want to cross train him at nickel, then you have an embarrassment of riches up front. And he's going to be a 4th round pick. So if it works out, great. If not, then, like, you're not spending massive capital. But I think Riley will be really fun here.
Well, and I think one thing that goes really well with that, and sorry to cut you off there, Sly, is Todd Bowles has spoken ad nauseum about getting better ball production. And Riley comes with a ton of ball production, 8 interceptions in the last 3 years. I want to say something like 35 passes defensed in the last 2. He led the ACC in passes defensed in 2024. So he certainly comes with that ball production background that the Bucs have lacked over the last couple of years, and that Todd Bowles has gone out of his way to say is a priority for them this year.
JP, I was just going to mention, so you said an embarrassment of riches, and thanks to the work of Jason Light and Mike Greenberg, the Bucs have an embarrassment of riches, but The Pewter people can also have an embarrassment of riches by going to Amuni Financial.
At Amuni Financial, we help you live in the now.
Congratulations. We're so happy for you.
Thank you.
And even though the now may feel very different, you still need to plan for the future.
How's retirement treating you?
Oh, just fantastic.
I know I say it all the time, but you really got to come up to Colorado.
Let's do it.
All right.
Yeah.
We can help you develop that plan to keep you on track so you can still prepare for tomorrow, today. Amuni Financial. Plan ahead, stay ahead.
Managing your family's wealth means more to Amuni Financial than simply allocating your assets. It means legacy planning, brokerage and advisory services, retirement accounts, college saving accounts, and insurance services. With 40 years of experience, let Amuni Financial help you plan ahead and stay ahead. Call Amuni Financial at 800-868-6864. Again, that's 800-868-6864, or visit Amuni.com. All right, so you guys were talking very highly of Quincy Riley. There are some other corners, Mello Dotson, Denzel Burke, he's fallen. Any other guys that stand out to you?
So Burke is really kind of an interesting case. I think he dealt with a lot of confidence issues at Ohio State. I think obviously a great athlete, but he got in his head a lot at Ohio State, and I think it stood out on tape. And, you know, that ability to have a short-term memory at corner is huge. I think he sometimes let completions, big plays sort of compound. And so I wonder which team is going to be able to kind of get that out of him, because I like the tools, but it's really hard but helping a guy who lets that confidence spiral. I'm a little intrigued by what the safety board looks like. I think Riley is going to be my guy here, but I'm intrigued by what safety looks like. That would be Billy would be incredibly fun. I think he kind of occupies the same spot where Tyke Smith plays, or that nickel safety hybrid. But dude flies around. Upton Stout is very small, but he is going to be a nickel at the NFL level.
Yeah, Upton had a really good Senior Bowl too.
Yeah, he's incredible. I love watching the guy play, but I think Quincy Riley's my guy here.
Okay. And had the chance to talk to Tyler Shaw, the quarterback of Louisville, and he praised Quincy Riley for what he was able to do, and just competing against him in practice. It was one way that allowed him to be a better quarterback, because he's very intelligent corner. He knows how to make plays around the ball. He had those 8 interceptions those past 3 years. I think he is more NFL ready than really any of the other guys here. And I think, again, just the fit on the Bucs, a versatile guy, he would fit right in.
And you get my guy Tyler Fornes loves Quincy Riley, has been talking about Quincy Riley since last year. I think this would be a really cool pick for the Bucs, just in terms of that versatility and, again, that mentality being on the outside. I think they need an edge out there.
So let's make him the pick. Also, shout out Michael Pless. Great show, my friends. Appreciate you. He was on the last mock draft. If you want to check that one out. And let's look at the grades here. They're not fans of Tate Ratledge in the mullet.
Yeah.
Anti-mullet PFF. That's crazy.
We'll call Trevor. Trevor's a former Pewter reporter. We'll get this.
Yeah, we'll see what's up with the mullet hate. You know, they're all business. There's no party in the back over at PFF. They're not ready to party with the mullets.
Oh, that's awesome. No, I really like this. I love the draft. I love some of the things that you did. They're outside of what we typically like hyper focus on. And so it brings a really cool perspective. And I love the fact that you address defense, and almost exclusively defense, because I think Bucs fans will agree with you that is where the emphasis needs to be this year.
Yeah, I think they just need an infusion of youth and speed, especially up front. And so with getting Walker in the first round, I think you kind of occupy that critical chess piece that Todd Bowles loves in his front seven. And then Schlesinger kind of plays off of Walker in terms of if you want one to blitz and one to drop, it can. If you want one to drop, one to blitz, you can do it the other way. But you have a guy who's more of a true linebacker in Schlesinger and then a true edge in Walker, but they can also occupy different roles on the team. So as long as they're moving and shaking, they're doing different things on the field, that allows Todd Bowles, as we know, to be more creative with his fronts, with the blitzes he can throw at teams. You'll never know who's dropping and who's blitzing with Walker and Schlesinger on the field. And then, like I said, Tate Ratledge, if Ratledge is the pick there, I need them to do a photo with Ratledge, Cody Mock, Godeke, Barton, Tristan Wirfs. I just need the mullets. I need it.
Still sticks around, so you can get Jensen in there.
Yeah, we need the mullets. That is a true offensive line right there. You got the super freak athletic marvel and Wirfs, and then just a bunch of angry dudes with mullets. That's my line.
That's a Bucs offensive line, and I like this draft because I think it really scratches the itch that Todd Bowles and Jason Light have. Like Jason Light, he loves offensive linemen, and every year he drafts one. And I think this is the last piece of the puzzle there. But then for Todd Bowles, you mentioned it, and I think you made a great point. Just the versatility. Like Todd Bowles, he doesn't get enough credit for really being a versatile defensive play caller, and just the way that he schemes up blitzes and different coverages. Last year, there was a lot of personnel issues that really held the defense back. But I think getting guys like Walker, Schlesinger, they add so much to that front seven where they really needed it. The biggest weakness was that middle of the field. You look at the Falcons game, both of them. You allow a guy like Kirk Cousins, who's now the backup quarterback, to throw for over 500 yards one game and then 4 touchdowns the next game. This shores up a lot of things. Getting DJ Reed really adds a lot to the secondary. And then there's also other pieces of the puzzle as well. I mean, there's 3 other rounds to address maybe some of the other needs, get another wide receiver. But overall, I think this is a great mock draft.
Yeah, yep. I think we address the needs while also getting some infusion of speed and youth on the team. And I think that's where great franchises, like they can get those infusions of youth in critical spots, and you can just you can throw them in and let the youth grow as the new era of the team grows. And I think this is another iteration of a new era for the Bucs.
No, that's awesome. JP, we really appreciate you being on today. I want to give you an opportunity to give all of our viewers, where can they find you? Where is the best place to get all of your thoughts, especially those non-NFL pro comps?
So you can find me on social media at Acosta32JP on Blue Sky, at Acosta32_JP on X. I am the NFL writer or football writer at SB Nation. So wherever football is being played, I'm probably talking about it, writing about it. Love the NFL draft. I have a few interesting stories. I had my big board go up last week before the combine. I had a couple stories on Shamar Stewart and hip bend earlier this week before the combine. This week I'm going to do a post-combine mock draft, and then of course the NFL comparisons that have nothing to do with football. So make sure you look out for that on SB Nation and just follow me, see what I'm doing, and see where I'm going.
Awesome. Pewter people, be sure to check out JP. You can also find us on X, Facebook, and Instagram at Pewter Report. But that'll do it for today's show. Be sure to check us out on tomorrow's podcast. But for JP Acosta and Josh Queipo, I'm Adam Slivon, wishing you a happy Sunday, and see you again for another Pewter Report podcast. Out.